So you know things are starting to go bad when even Sargon of Akkad, basically in his recent video, made the most hilarious argument to remain in the EU. Yes, I am not making this up. Sargon's most recent Brexit video about the Brexit chaos, well, all he does is complain about the fact that we are losing our ability to be able to influence EU laws. And here's the thing. Even Sagon, who has advocated in the past for the hardest possibles of Brexit, when we leave, and that happened, we still would have to follow EU laws and regulation in order to be able to trade with the EU. You know, the single market, the new digital market, air agreements, manufacturing, you know, what, agricultural standards, environmental standards, all this stuff we would have to follow as well. And I'm very interested because Sargon is one of these people who made the sovereignty argument during the referendum campaign. So I'm very interested to know Sargon's thoughts on the UK-US trade deal, where the US would impose their regulations on us. And here's the thing, we wouldn't get a say in any changing of those regulations. And that's meant to be an advantageous trading situation, according to Sargon, and something that we should desire. But I'm very interested to know what his thoughts are on that. For someone who made the sovereignty argument very loudly, that's a massive contradiction. But there you go. Like I say, and this all goes back to the referendum campaign. People like me on the Remain side were constantly saying, look, if you leave the European Union, yeah, you'll be able to make your own laws, but if you want to continue to trade with Europe, which is our best and biggest, closest trading partner, because people, all these idiot ideologues, bang on about the fact, oh, we can trade with the US, India, and Australia. Well, as I've said numerous times before, distance matters in trade, and you always want to trade with your closest neighbour, which are the European Union. So don't think that this, you know, these trade agreements with these countries would even be favourable. Even the government's own report would basically say, hey, look, even if we got the most favourable like US trade deal, it would not be able to compensate for the loss of GDP we would lose from leaving the single market and the customs union. So this is where we are. And these idiots like Sargon and ideologues, again, just like Sargon, who have fallen for this ridiculous propaganda that have pumped up the UK's economic power, that to a point where it's just it's not feasible, it's not there, it's not a reality of the situation. Again, if you want to look at the UK's economic past from World War II, our GDP fell by 10% every single decade until we joined back in 1975. It then, on 1975, stabilised and began to grow. I point this out constantly, guys. What do you think is going to happen when we leave the European Union? We do not have the empire anymore, which was one of the things that was keeping us massively propped up. And again, after the end of the Second World War, what started happening to the empire? It started to fall apart, which was again another massive big contributor to our downfall in GDP. Not only that, But Margaret Thatcher, during the 80s, dismantled much of the UK's manufacturing base. We are 80% of our economy is service-based. The only trade agreement that deals with services has been the EU and the single market access. No other country will do a trade deal based on goods and services. Only the EU does that. So I'm glad that Sargon made the argument to stay, because at least he recognises the fact, bizarrely, now that losing control and not having power in the European Union to be able to affect laws is going to be a massive disadvantage for the UK going forward. So I'm glad he's bizarrely making the argument to remain in the EU. But there you go.